car keys. They don't just represent transportation from point A to point B, they represent freedom. But we know all too well that some seniors can't drive safely, and the keys should be put on the table. Dr. James Campbell is here to drive home ways to keep seniors safe. Dr. Campbell is the director of the Senior Health Outpatient Center at MetroHealth. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
So is there a certain age that we should just be cut off from driving?
There's definitely no age that indicates when your driving should be looked at and reevaluated. What's important is to really evaluate the kind of conditions that affect your ability to drive safely. It's important to make sure you've had a good vision assessment, good hearing assessment. Patients who are having trouble with falling are the kind of people who may be having trouble with driving. As well as making sure that you're having a good cognitive assessment to see if there's any evidence of dementia, in addition to what is your driving record and what has been your driving success or lack thereof. Okay, so just because you're older doesn't mean you have to stop. It could be a health issue or something. A lot of times it sounds like dementia is the problem with driving. Dementia can be a huge problem with driving, partially because what happens, for example, with sort of some of the slowing of the reflexes, or maybe your joints are a little arthritic, and so that you're not quite as quick as you used to be. Those kind of conditions, what the older driver does is they actually correct for those. And so they will drive a little bit slower, or they'll stop driving after dark, or they'll stop driving on the highway, because their decision-making capacity is intact about what's a safe way to drive. If you're having issues with cognition or dementia or Alzheimer's, you may not be able to make the right decisions about whether or not you're safe to drive. Okay, so even if dementia is the issue, it doesn't make it easy to talk to your parents, especially if they don't recognize that something's going on. It's very, very difficult. The driving is so big for individuals in the United States, particularly, you know, it's part of your identity. It was your rite of passage when you were 16, and to have somebody talk about taking that away, we strongly encourage people to do this with the help of a physician. A geriatrician is often very helpful, because you don't want the family to be the bad guy. Right. You don't want to be the person, well, I took away Dad's keys. It's much better to say, well, Dr. Campbell took away Dad's keys. So what do you say to patients? Well, I mean, you really do. You sort of talk to patients about who they are, who they've been, what they're proud of, and they start to talk about, well, I was a good father, I was a good husband, I was a good worker, and you know, and you sort of, well, you're a good driver, oh, I was a great driver. You sort of say, well, you wouldn't want to have that whole lifetime of good behavior and track record ruined by an accident. Okay. But you also have to go into that conversation having done some background work with the family about how are you going to make it so that that doesn't make that person isolated and at risk for depression. So how are we going to arrange for them to have transportation, you know? Is it going to be the family, or are there other programs? There's lots of resources. Senior transportation resources, who was on the show a little while back. You know, in some communities, like in our community in Old Brooklyn, senior citizen resources. There's paratransit through the RTA. You know, there's a lot of resources out there, but you have to know how to access them. All right, this sounds like great information for our kids out there who are worrying about their parents. So my thanks to Dr. Campbell for mapping out the keys to keeping seniors safe, including when to put the car in park. Follow his directions to keep your loved ones and the others out on the road out of harm's way.
To learn more, call MetroHealth at 216-778-7800 or visit their website, www.metrohealth.org.